Yo. So today's DM is on Instagram and it's from a chap whose name I shall not mention. But he says, "Hey man, my name is. For some reason, I came across your page. It caught my attention that we have somewhat of a similar story, and I want to reach out for help to know your story and how you overcome the childhood trauma. Because I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with depression, phobia, pain of trying to speak to someone but don't know how to, and feel like it's destroying me inside. I feel like I can do a whole lot better and be focused and do whatever it takes to succeed in life, but it's hard for me. I tried doing therapy, but still don't really know or felt like expressing my feelings or my childhood trauma because it sounds stupid when I try to say something or people might not believe me. So please, if you come across this, I would really appreciate it to get some feedbacks/tips on it. You know, when we've gone through abuse, if we've gone through some type of trauma and we don't deal with that shit, it's just chains that are wrapped around us and it's putting us back. Sometimes it's got some big ass strength and we just don't feel like we're getting anywhere in life, or we're getting some places in life but we're doing it and it just feels so heavy to even move forward with one step because we can feel the resistance pulling us back. And it's just ultimately because we're running away. It's because we are, you can't run a marathon we're carrying this heavy ass boulder. It's just not going to happen. You might be able to bloody walk a couple of steps. You might not even be able to pick the damn thing up, right? But it's attached to you, and you just can't do anything, go anywhere. You can't even think clearly because like this thing is so complex. It's like when you've gone through that type of shit, it's going to completely tear apart your self-worth. You're not going to believe that you can be something. You're not going to believe that you can make it as an actor. You're not going to believe that you can make it as a singer. You're not going to believe you can start a business. You're not going to believe that you can be rich. And then let's just say you do start to get some money, you just burn everything to the ground and make yourself broke again because you feel more comfortable being broke than you do with a lot of money in your account because you don't feel worthy of it. Yeah. And you'll find that thing, that sort of lack of self-worth, just going across the board with everything, with relationships, your partner, with just the way you allow people to treat you because you deep down believe that's how you should be treated because back then that's what your dad used to do to you. That's what your mum used to do to you. That's what that's what your last husband done to you. And when you started dating, he was the best thing in the world. And boom, all of a sudden he's a narcissistic physical abuser. But everybody thinks he's a great guy, and then if you don't deal with it, you do start to believe how you've been treated. You start to believe that you're worthy of the hand that you were dealt when you were put on this planet. And you're not going to be able to get anywhere with your life. You just won't. It's impossible until you deal with it. And don't get me wrong, there's anomalies to this. There's people who run massive companies that were abused and nobody really knows about it. And they don't want to talk about it or deal with it because deep down they believe that right there is what has enabled them to get to the top, and they're using it as fuel. And if they deal with it, then they're going to be afraid that they're not going to be able to carry on building that empire because what fuel do they have now? And there's a lot of people out there that's like that. I think that when it comes down to it, let's go back to this message. When it comes to the depression, the phobia, the pain of trying to speak to someone, like if you're asking me personally, my healing journey, I haven't had your typical healing journey. I'm approaching this whole healing thing, whatever you want to call this, the healing world, the healing game, mainly through a self-development, a self-improvement lens. Because for me personally, I didn't go to therapy, I didn't go to counseling. I had a counselor when I was at school, but I don't really remember the sessions. But I didn't get a therapist as an adult. I didn't go down any of your typical routes. And that's not me to say, hey, you don't go and get a therapist. I'm not saying that. Definitely go and do it. And if one doesn't work, you go and try a second one. It's like if you hire a personal trainer and they're shit, doesn't mean all PTs are shit. Just means you might have to cycle through a few of them until you found one that clicks. So definitely go down the route of therapy. But I'm not your guy for that. I am the guy who's like, do that. But also at the same time, what I would like you to do is just look at it slightly differently and maybe come onto this path as well as that one. Yeah, do some things alongside that. You know, when you go to therapy, it's very much like they guide you, yes, but it's like they have to do the right things. They have to ask the right questions. They have to steer you down the right path, which is why sometimes it doesn't help people because it could be the quality of the therapist or it could be a whole host of different reasons. But when it comes to self-improvement and taking control of your own healing journey, that's where I think is the best match. And so for me, it wasn't a conscious decision that I made. It just didn't happen. I never went down a path of therapy. I went down the path of continuously being like, okay, who do I want to be next? Who do I want to become? Who's that Perry Powell 2.0? Who's that Perry Powell 3.0? And what life does that person live? All right, cool. Well, I know that version of me lives with complete freedom. He doesn't give a fuck what people think about his abuse. His abuse doesn't define him. Sure, he might talk about it a lot, okay, but he does that for the pure fact that he knows it helps other people, okay? But when it comes off social media and it's just him with his friends or with his partner, he doesn't really talk about it that much because there's other things to talk about because it's not the only part of him that exists, right? Cool, and that's the life that he's living. All right, so if that's going to be me, and he reads a lot of books and he goes to events and he puts himself into this sort of mental interrogation room, which is what I call it, and he asks himself the questions to see how he responds back to them and trusts his own intuition, then maybe that will help. And I believe personally that if you are looking constantly for the wounds to heal, then you're always going to find wounds to heal. But if you look constantly towards the person who you need to become, you're going to move 1% closer towards that person that you want to become. And a lot of healing will happen as a byproduct of that. So that's been my journey personally. When it comes to depression, don't get me wrong. I've had my fights with depression for sure. That first year of lockdown, it was a fucking shitstorm. You know, that whole year when my ex-girlfriend left me and that triggered just severe abandonment issues I didn't even know I had. And, you know, there was a time where I was this close from crashing my car into a brick wall by a petrol station, but I didn't because my dog was back at home. And I was like, what is she going to do? You know, that's selfish of me to do that. There was a time where I was standing in my kitchen where I got a knife and I held it to my own throat. And I was like, right, let's go. Let's slice, you know. I didn't, obviously, but I was in those moments and it's just horrific. It's horrific. Now, what I do remember is that in those darkest moments, in those darkest things, I just obsessed over the fact that I was like, hey, shit is so bad right now, I couldn't even imagine it being worse. And then I flipped the script on how I want to look at that. And I was like, okay, amazing. Because I know that tough battles is what creates amazingly strong warriors. I'm going to make it through this. I am. I'm on this planet to do amazing things. I'm not on this planet to fucking suffer and be in a house with no furniture, sleeping on a floor, or sleeping on some pull-out couch from a charity shop. I'm not with debt collectors at the door, with a clamp on my car outside, with no food in the fridge. My dog is fucking, her health is just rapidly declining. I'm not on this planet to just be in this hot mess. There is something to learn from this. And if that learning thing is just the fact that I just need to make it through it, because when I do get through the other side and there's light and I'm living my life in a way that's better than what I was just living it back then, surely that's going to make me more of a wise human being. Surely I can take those experiences and just apply it to the next chapter of my life. Surely this is going to make me stronger. Surely now I know, okay, to spot the red flags more in my next partner because of what just happened. You know, surely this is one big game. And if I fight and get through this level and defeat the boss, the next level, I would have leveled up as a character in this fucking game that we're playing. Surely, And it's just having that faith that surely this is fucking happening for a reason. Because here's the thing, if it's not happening for a reason, then what the fuck is the point in being it? What is the point? I might as well slice my throat. I might as well drive my car into the brick wall. Because what's the point? But if we choose to see it from a different angle, if we choose to be like, okay, there's multiple answers here. We've got answers that won't serve me, and we've got answers that do serve me. And sure, somebody out there, if they were a fly on the wall and heard me speaking to myself, they might think I'm absolute batshit crazy for seeing my situation that I'm currently in as something that's amazing. They might think, what the fuck is this guy on? Is he on drugs? No. But I know that way of saying it and acting is just going to serve me more than being like, shit, this is all happening to me. What's the point? I might as well not be here. I'm a burden on everyone. And just going into that negative loop. I just made that decision of just which one I wanted to go down. That's what got me through those fights with depression. Now, when it comes to the pain of speaking to someone, right, not knowing how to and feel like it's destroying me inside. So the fear of speaking to someone, for me, it got, don't get me wrong, my dad's death had a big part to play in it. When my dad died, my dad was a big reason why I maintained my silence, because he told me to stay silent. To begin with, my dad was a man that was a great guy, but he parented in a way where he instilled fear into his kids. So I was scared of my dad, 100%. So the thought of even me talking about this, if my dad was alive, I have no magic ball, so I don't know what life would look like right now if my dad was alive. But I know for a fact that when he was alive, I didn't speak about it. And I just buried it further and further and further. And then when he did die, it did give me some sort of freedom and some sort of space to tell someone. And that telling someone was my girlfriend at the time, my ex-girlfriend, my first girlfriend. I told her. And I was shitting myself. Right? I was like, oh. I was like, fuck. The thought of waiting for her to come home from the pub to tell her what happened. I was like, shit. And I just remember being like, oh, she's going to leave me. She's going to like just... And then in my head, I was like, that's one dialogue. Then another dialogue is that mental interrogation room thing that I talk about. And every time I say that, I just picture about Batman and the Joker in The Dark Knight. It's the same thing I do inside of here. And I'm like, okay, cool. If she leaves you, what is that the end of the world? If she leaves you because you told her that you're abused, doesn't that show her colors more than anything else? Yeah. Huh. So why are you fearing this? Because what's the best that could happen? She could support you. Yeah. Huh. And you're having trouble with this decision because? All right. Okay. She comes home and then I go over for a walk out with her and our dog, and I told her and she welcomed me with open arms. And now that, don't get me wrong though. Don't get me wrong, right? I ever since that happened, I always say this, that if you're living in silence, don't tell someone straight away. Because what I will say is, again, I don't have a magic 8-ball to know what reality would have existed if X, Y, and Z happened. But what I will know is that when I told her, if she didn't accept me with open arms and she just rejected me, or she gave me too long of a pause, and, I would have read into that and I would have seen that as rejection. And now, probably, that would have sent me back living in silence for however long moving forward, because now I associate my truth with rejection. But that is because I was looking for I was looking for, what's the word? I was looking for validation from her, And I think it's near impossible to not seek validation if you break your silence through the act of telling someone. It's almost impossible to not be seeking validation and seeking their approval, having them believe you. And which is why I think that is a path that you need to steer clear from. So what you need to do instead is break the silence to yourself first in as many different ways as possible. All right. So rather than telling someone on step one, you journal about it. Okay. You tell yourself in the mirror. So now you're adding some vocal projection to that. Okay. You go to pottery class and you make a pot, And now that pot becomes a physical representation of your story. Like you're thinking about that shit as you're making that pot. You write a song. You choreograph a dance piece that is an expression of your story. There is no right or wrong answer. Just multiple ways. It's just basically find a path where you can express that shit that you went through emotionally. Okay. Through that, do it as many times as possible. Then on step 12 or step number 36, then you tell someone. And I can guarantee you that the difference between telling someone a step 1 to telling someone a step 19 is the difference between night and day. You're not seeking their validation. It would be nice if you got their belief, but it won't shatter your world if they don't give it to you, because you believe you validate you know what happened. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, because that's in your control. Someone else's reaction is outside your control. All right. So I get the fact that you have this fear over telling someone, but you must know that you need to break the silence to yourself first in as many different ways as possible. That fear will always be there. But what will happen is your self-confidence will start to come up. Because right now you don't really have any when it comes to all of this. You just have fear. But the more times you break the silence to yourself, which forces you to constantly reflect over it and see it from a bird's eye view and see it from all these different angles, that's what gives you that self-confidence. That's what gives you that assurance that, hey, you know it, right? It wasn't your fault. All right, you made it through. You're here today. That is fucking testament enough to how much of a warrior that you are. Boom, that self-confidence starts to come up. And it's just about kind of getting this balance and act, hopefully in an ideal world, that self-confidence trumps the fear. So that when you do tell someone, you're like, this shit happened to me when I was 4. And if someone says, no, it didn't, you'd be like, hold on, I wasn't asking you a question, right? I'm not asking you, hey, do you think it happened? No, I'm telling you that it happened. It is what it is, you know? It takes a while to get there, but it's far better to start putting those steps in place now to get there eventually. All right. And what you'll find is that once you've done that and you've released that weight, then you will start to find that success in your life. Then you will find yourself, okay, now I can go for that job. Now I can change career. Now I can start that business. Now I can start making money. You know, now I can find that perfect partner. Now I can get a house. Now I can do this. Now I can do that. Now I can do that. Why? Because now you're living your life fully authentic to you. You're not living your life half authentic and half living in silence, because that silence will not allow you to show up in the world in a way that will get you the life that you want to live. You can only do that when you show up 100% powerfully. Okay? So I hope that helped. All right? If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below this amazing YouTube video. All right? Cool. Hope that helped. Catch you guys in the next one.